everybody. As I say, I am Chantal Cappelletti. Just will introduce you a little bit about what are small satellites and their application. Let's start to a brief introduction of myself. So I'm a space passionate that is working here at University of Nottingham, in particular established a program that is called NottsSpace. Our team is working mostly in three main fields: launch vehicle, satellites, and ground segment. What we are doing, we are trying to apply the principle of hands-on education. So we are trying to involve the student in real project. So mostly we are working different platforms. We have a project called CubeSat, that are a small satellite. We have a project inside the International Space Station, but also we are running a series of competition with small satellite of the size of a can called CubeSat, or also with the small rocket. Today we are talking about satellite. First of all, what is a satellite? A satellite, for definition, is an object that orbits, so go around a planet. Consider this definition, the first things that should come into your mind is the most famous satellite we have. That is, of course, the moon. The moon is one of the several hundred natural satellites that are orbiting on our solar system, and of course is the satellite of our planet Earth. This can be classified as a natural satellite, but today we are focusing our attention on different kind of satellite that are the one that are human-made. In particular, we have the ones that are called artificial satellite. The artificial satellite have been launched in space since 1975. Why we need a satellite? What are the satellites made for? Mostly, they can provide a series of service from Earth observation, weather monitoring, to internet, to also provide you your position or help you to watch the movie. So mostly the satellite is a very useful tools that will allow us to perform several kind of activities. So when you are watching your TV, you can do that thanks to a satellite that is sending the signal to your house. Now, if we know right now that we have a huge problem with the climate change, it's because satellites give us information about our Earth and how the climate is changing over the time. If you are not getting lost when you're going to the supermarket or wherever in a new country, is because you can use your GPS or your mobile phone that is connected to a constellation of satellites that give you information of where are you located. Of course, all this kind of application can be done using a system that is a satellite that is a conjunction of different components. For example, we have inside the satellite, I used to say that it's very similar to our body. So we have the structure that is working as a skeleton to support all the other system. We have our brain, that is the onboard computer, that is similar to the computer that you are using home or your mobile phone, but a little bit more sophisticated and reliable. We have the capability to move in one direction or another, thanks to what is called the attitude orbital determination control system. And of course, we need energy. We have battery and solar panels that are powering our satellite. But the most important part of the satellite is, of course, the payload. The payload is the component that will allow us to perform a specific mission. It can be a telescope, it can be a simple radio, an experiment, and everything. All the satellite is designed around the payload. But what are the size? How big is a satellite? What are the size of the satellite? Satellites are classified in function of their weight. They can go from large satellite, have the weight more than 1,000 kilo, to medium and up to small satellite. To give you an idea of what we are talking about, you need to think about one of the biggest satellites. So the object that is rotating around the Earth is for sure the International Space Station. The International Space Station is really huge. It has the dimension comparable with the dimension of a American football field, as you can see in this image. So it's a really big system that is on orbit where the astronaut can perform several missions, but also right now are used also to launch other small satellites. We will see that later. Other big satellite, you can see here, there is another one of the biggest satellites that has been launched up to now, that is the UniSat satellite. If you look here, there is the dimension of a person respect to the size of this satellite is almost the size of a bus. And there are a new trend in the satellite industry that is called the small satellite. Small satellites are really small, can go from a satellite between 100, 500 kilo up to something really, really small called a femto. To give you an idea, but this is one small satellite. This is called CubeSat, and we will talk about that a little bit later. So the small satellite can go for something that's just big as a credit card to something that is, let's say, 500 kilo. Let's do a brief overview of the history of small satellite and general satellite. We discussed that the first satellite was launched in the 1957, the 4th of October. This is the reason why this week has been the Space Week, because for the first time ever, humans were able to launch something in orbit. And they launched something that was not so big, was just a small ball, and but with these two big antenna. It was called Sputnik. Sputnik means in Russian satellite, so they were not so innovative in the name. So they launched a satellite called Satellite, but okay. This satellite was able only to send a signal on ground, so it was not having a very huge performance, because of course it was the first example, first object that we were able to launch. In the year, we were able, after the launch of the Sputnik, we were able to launch only 4 years after the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin. And after we start to launch probe to the moon, with the Luna mission, we were able to launch and land on the moon with the Apollo 11 in the 69. So just 12 years after the launch of the first satellite. And so we start to launch probes and satellites around other planets like Venus, and we start to establish our own space exploration program with different launch, with different solution, with the launch, for example, and the design of the first reusable space shuttle, and so on. As you can see here, I put a red line because around 2000, something happened in the space industry. I will talk about that a little bit later. So as in the case of the mobile phone, the size of the satellite were reducing, but the mobile phone we found minimum when we had the smallest mobile phone design. At the time, we started to think about how we can implement the capability of the mobile phone. And at the time, we start to use app and video. Of course, using app and video, we want to see better. So the size of our phone continues to grow up to now that we are using a very big phone respect to the one that we were using 3 years ago. But the performance of this mobile phone are not at all comparable with this one. The first one were just able to do what a phone is designed for. So just have call. And after we were introducing the possibility to send text message, video call, and now we can also see movie on our own phone. Something similar happened in the satellite industry. The size decreases a lot. From huge, big satellite, we went to very, very, very small and thin satellite. But when the dimensions were decreasing, the performance of the satellite were increasing. So we were able to launch something smaller, but with a huge AI capability. You need to think that when we launched the people on moon, we were having a computer with the same capability of a small old smartphone. Right now, we can put a lot of technology in a very small satellite, also as this one that is called Pocket Cube, and it's really small and can be in your pocket. So this is thanks to people, particularly to Professor Robert Twiggs and his colleague, Professor Jordi Puig-Suari. Professor Twiggs and Professor Suari right now are in the Hall of Fame of space because they invented a new kind of satellite that is called CubeSat. The idea came out to Professor Twiggs, that is a very nice person and really, really interested in involving students in real activity, real space activity. His career was always dedicated to inventing something to improve the student experience, to give the student the opportunity to reach space easily. And in 1980, it was at Stanford University in California. A company asked them to design a small satellite with the size of an ice cream. He was thinking how I can make an ice cream size satellite. What I can do. He was thinking, and after he went to most beautiful place, a toy shop. In the toy shop, we found these Beanie Babies that were really common at the time. He was seeing this box with this teddy bear inside. He said, this is exactly the size of the satellite that I need. And he started to think about standardize the dimension of the satellite. What that means, each satellite called CubeSat should have the same dimension. And the dimensions are exactly this one. There are dimensions of 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter. Standardizing the satellite means that everyone that wants to design a CubeSat should come out with something similar outside. But inside, you can put all the technology that you want. You also start to think about the possibility to do that as a Lego. So instead of having just one U, you can put another satellite on top and have 2U or also 3U. So the standard starts from 1U and grow up to 2U, 3U. Now we have 6U, 12U, and so on. But the idea of having this standardized helped a lot because everyone that was designing something for that satellite was designing something that can be used also in other satellites from other countries. The small satellite activity were completely changed, introducing this modular structure. Everyone was able to reuse system design for other missions. For example, if I am here in Nottingham and I'm thinking of a new onboard computer, really great with a high performance and really reliable, after I tested my onboard computer in my own satellite, I can think on selling, on donating that to another company or another university that can be, for example, in South Africa. In this way, the satellite team start to share knowledge, share components, and increase the capability of each component. It was a huge revolution and helped a lot of students to reach space. In this picture, you can see some of my project, some of picture of me with my colleagues doing different projects we were running where we were students. At the beginning, of course, this new market was a little bit tough. And particularly, we were trying to design something that was reliable, but was really difficult. The technology was not real mature. And the first satellite, the first CubeSat, had a huge number of failures. If you see in this picture, we have in 2005, there were different missions that were failed, mostly because this satellite, in 2005, we had the launch of a rocket with more than 20 satellites on board that had a failure due to one of the engines. So of the small satellite was lost in the launch. So it was not the fault of the satellite, but was something that happened. And this is an image to show how many small satellites was launched up to 2020. So we have around 100 satellites. Around 2009, 2010, we had a huge improvement of small satellites, in particular in CubeSat, because before 2010, institutions like NASA, European Space Agency, and so on were thinking on small satellite as something that was just for kids, something that was not really reliable. But in 2009, they changed mind and start to think, no, these satellites are really a new platform, something that can revolutionize our market. Let's give some support for this mission. And so NASA in particular started what was called ELANA mission. ELANA mission is still a university satellite mission, but supported by NASA. So NASA was offering the launch opportunity. A lot of university, a lot of student team start to design their own satellite. And the market had an incredible boom on the activity. In particular, also other countries start to think about CubeSat as something reliable. And we had the possibility of having access to space achieved by also companies that before were not able at all also to think about having something in orbit. So we had something like the first Peruvian satellite was done by a university in Peru. The first Estonia also was a student project, the first Poland, the first Hungarian, and so on. A lot of small country, a lot of poor country had finally access to space and the possibility to exploit space and use for their own interest, for their own activity, so to support a series of projects. In the meantime, we had a lot of small companies start their business in small satellite. Here you can see a few of them, but we had a huge impulse on developing new market for using small satellite. We face something different. For the first time, we can reach space not anymore just using the traditional, but we can also reach space using air launch, so an aircraft with a small rocket that is released and can reach the orbit. We can also launch from the International Space Station with a specific system, or we can use motor ships, like, for example, a bigger satellite, not so huge, that we release some satellite. For example, this picture is a satellite I made a few years ago, where we were able to board two smaller satellites called CubeSat. One of them, this UBA-TUBA-SAT, was designed by students of year 6 to year 8. And they launched that in space thanks to this platform. The satellite was able to communicate from orbit some signal through the radio that they were manufacturing by their own. The space world is now accessible also to younger students. This is a small video I want to show you that show the launch of satellite using a platform that is a small satellite called UniSat. I don't know if you hear the music, but in any case, there is a small music on the background. This satellite launch was done by Russia using a launch vehicle that is called the Dnieper. This is a unique rocket that is performing a specific maneuver, rotating and releasing the satellite without any spring. In this mission, they launched 110 satellites in just one launch. The rocket is rotating, is opening, and release the satellite one after the other. One of these satellites, the UniSat-1, was boarding other 10 satellites in itself. This one. So mostly, as you can see, the satellite can be assembled in a small room. There are some tests that should be performed, in this case, an electronic test of the opening. And this is how we are integrating the satellite inside the mothership using a specific deployer. And this is the satellite when it's integrated inside the rocket. It's fixed on the base where we are going to send the signal to release the satellite to space. As you can see, we need to use specific cloths to don't pollute or put dust on the satellite. Otherwise, when they are going to space, can have trouble. And this is the signal we are getting. In particular, in this satellite, we were getting some picture from space, like the satellite. This is an old picture of the Earth, looking the Indian Ocean, Spain, Pacific Ocean, Sicily, and so on. So, in particular, these small satellites are used to test new technology, to enhance traditional application, but also to explore new horizons and improve life on ground. At the moment, the idea is that instead to launch a big satellite, you can launch thousands of small satellites and have the capability to cover all the globe. In this way, you can give service to everybody in the world. For example, this service is used for providing internet also in the remote area, using, for example, a solution like Starlink. Starlink is a constellation small satellite that is planning to have 12,000 satellites in orbit. And you can see when you are taking a picture of the sky, you will see like a train of objects that are the Starlink satellite put in the same orbit. Of course, this creates the problem related to the space junk or space debris. If you see here, this is an image of all the objects orbiting right now. It's a simulation, of course, around the Earth. And you can see there are a huge number of satellites. But on the other hand, you can use the satellite also to capture the old satellite in orbit, doing what is called remove debris, clean up the space in order to be able to reach new destination. In particular, in terms of new destination, what the scientists want to do is to reach Mars really soon, before 2040. To do that, we are putting in place a series of activity. In particular, we are going back to the moon, and after for the moon, the idea is to reach Mars. So Earth, Moon, Mars. Also in these activities, small satellites are a key technology to improve our capability to go to Mars, in particular offering some service. For this reason, in last year, we launched several CubeSat around the moon with the Artemis 1 mission. It was a test for the rocket that will launch the astronaut to the moon really soon, but also a technological demonstrator for new technology to investigate the condition of the moon. Small satellite reached very far planet, like, for example, Mars, with the Mars Cube 1 project of Marco, launched in 2018. Here at the University of Nottingham, we are also conducting our own activity, and we are really focusing our attention in missions that are humanitarian purposes. Particularly, we have missions that are studying how we can use space to treat disease like cancer. Or also, we won a competition from European Space Agency to investigate how we can produce drugs and medicine in space when we have a condition like microgravity or ionizing radiation. Let's imagine an astronaut that is going to Mars, so he's traveling for 6 months. During 6 months, he can have trouble. He can have take a fever, take a virus, and so on. How is going to take care of himself? Sometimes if he's bringing medicine can expire, so what he can do? We can investigate how to reproduce the medicine in space using our small system. Is what we are going to do next year inside the International Space Station. But also we are studying worms. Looks a little bit strange, but worms are representing our body and how they are acting in space. They demonstrate how our musculoskeletal system is working. Investigating that, we can also find a solution for important disease like paralysis and so on ground. But also we are taking care of the nature and the animals. We have a project called TemboSat that is investigating the poaching of elephant. Tembo in Kenyan, it means elephant. So with our satellite, we are able to track the elephant and investigate. Also, we are doing several small activity to test our technology and to prove them before we are going to space. And of course, we have our own ground station to receive signal from the satellite. You are very welcome to come and visit us here at Nottingham if you are interested and have more information on what we are doing. In addition, what are the limits of the satellite? If we're talking about the limit of what we can use, what we can do with our satellite, really it's up to you. It's up to the future generation. Satellites have the capability to do several things. Can be used to investigate how the sea level rise, how we can save some animals, how we can provide water in the country that don't have water, how the weather is going to be tomorrow, can give you information how to treat disease. The bench of application is really depending only on your imagination, on what you want to do with your satellite. Of course, the most important thing is that you are passionate about that and that you are starting to learn a little bit more. There are several websites that you can also check. In particular, ESA is offering a lot of online lecture about what is a satellite and what you can do with that. So I'm suggesting you to have a look on that. Thank you very much for your attention. And the last slide that I share with the organization are related to the possibility to build your own satellite. Of course, this is a model. You are free to use that. With this simple material, you can build your own satellite. Okay, they have a question. What is the biggest satellite we have sent to orbit? So, as a satellite, the biggest one can be considered the International Space Station. A single satellite for communication is the MVSat-1 that has a size like a bus. And also to launch that, we have to design a specific rocket. Other question, why does everyone have to be very clean when they build the satellite? Because inside the satellite, there is the electronics. So when the satellite, if some dust is going on the satellite, when the satellite is going space, you cannot clean anymore that. And so if you are putting dust, the dust can create a short circuit in the electronics, you will lose the satellite. So it's very important that the satellite is in a controlled environment when it's installed inside the rocket. So cleanness is one of the key aspects. And just imagine that your screen, your mobile screen, if it's full of dust, you are not able to see anything. The same, for example, for your solar cell. If the satellite is covered of dust, when in space, it's not taking power from the sun. And inside the satellite, the problem is related to the electronics. If you are interested, just drop me an email and we can plan something to make your real satellite. If someone is interested, I will be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions or any queries, just send STEM Ambassador Hub East Midlands an email and I can forward it on to Chantal on your behalf. Thank you so much, Chantal, for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.